Welcome, everybody. So welcome to this yin session for Yoga Scotland. Wonderful cause to be supporting Yoga Scotland as a charity and, of course, the Birth 3 Fund. I'm Caroline, for those of you who don't know me, and we're going to be doing some yin yoga this afternoon. For those who are not familiar with yin yoga, it's quite different to traditional yoga in that it works with traditional Chinese medicine. So rather than Ayurvedic side and the doshas, we're working with TCM. So I'll guide you through some shapes. It's a very still practice. We're going to be mainly lying down on our back or on our front, and we hold each shape for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now, that's not an absolute rule. Please do listen to your body, ease out, adjust as you need to. You'll notice I've got quite a lot of props here. I know that you were guided to bring yoga kit. If like me, that's a couple of bolsters, some blankets, some cushions, even a couple of pillows. I've got blocks, I've got bricks. You might need none of it, some of it, you might just want all of it. So making sure as well you're going to be warm, as it is a relatively still practice. I'd also have a yoga belt as well. So if you've got something similar, a scarf, that would be really helpful. So I'm going to assume you haven't been through the whole morning, and we're going to come to lying down, take a moment to settle our breath and stretch our hamstrings and come into our first yin yoga shape. So making sure that you have everything you need in relatively ease. If you do have a bolster or some blocks and bricks of pillows, it might be helpful to have it behind your head. And I'm going to come into my lying down position here, so that when we come into a crescent moon shape, we might be able to use our height for the arms to come onto. So I'm just going to shift some of the props out of the way so you can fully see me. And you might like to start in a semi-supine shape, making sure that your head and your neck feel like they are supported. I like to use a cushion, bit of softness in my older age, but coming to any lying down shape that feels comfortable for you, making sure that your lower back feels at rest. And that might be with the knees bent. It might be with the legs extended. You could always pop something under the knees if that's helpful. Maybe there's a softening through the shoulders, allowing your shoulders to melt a little further down towards the earth. And you might like to relax and ease into your jaw area. So I like to stick my tongue out and give it a little bit of wiggle. And perhaps you also roll your tongue around the inside of your mouth. So pushing your tongue into one cheek and rolling it around the inside of that side. And then over to the other cheek. With the possibility of stretching the upper and lower lip. So we know if the jaw is tense and tight, the diaphragm's likely to be tight as well. So we're freeing our jaw in order to free our breathing muscle. A sense that your spine is in a gentle alignment, the beautiful undulating curves of the spine. And perhaps you soften your gaze or close your eyes, resting your arms and your hands wherever feels comfortable for you. Gently sealing your lips and breathing in and out through your nose. So taking these first few moments to arrive on your mat or back on your mat if you were joining in this morning. Perhaps aware of any sounds or noises you can hear within your house or flats or perhaps outside. And then inviting them to softly melt away. As you gently breathe in and out, is it possible to guide your inhalation towards the lowest parts of your lungs or the lowest lobes? Maybe you take a hand to your solar plexus area or both hands so that you can feel the last couple of ribs, top of the abdomen, so above the navel area. Beginning to get a sense that perhaps the breath is traveling to the lowest parts of the lungs where the majority of the gas exchange takes place.
Perhaps an acknowledgement of the work the lungs do for us. And then maybe you gently take your hands to the front of your rib cage, so feeling into the ribs. If it's comfortable, you may like to take the thumbs behind your ribs, at the back of the body, fingers at the front. And as you breathe in, still trying to breathe the lowest parts of the lungs, but a sense of your rib cage expanding outwards. So this expansion with your inhalation, and a softening, a retreating back with each exhalation. So beginning to ensure we're taking a functional diaphragmatic breath. In your own time, beginning to rest your arms, your hands. We're going to guide ourselves back to this simple diaphragmatic breath as we come through the different shapes and movements through this yin practice. Beginning to reach for your belt when you're ready. And beginning to find your knees bent, feet flat on the floor. So our semi-supine, sometimes known as constructive rest shape here. A sense of toes pointing forwards. And then beginning to take your belt, or perhaps using a scarf, around the ball of the right foot. Beginning to lift your right leg in towards the sky, and then sliding your hands down the belt. So we want to try and make this as restful as we can. So maybe you have a scarf or a belt where you can have your elbows on the floor, allowing the shoulders to rest. You might like to begin with a soft bent right knee, and then perhaps your right heel moves up towards the sky and your right toes come towards your face. Maybe your heel begins to reach up towards the sky, if that feels possible today. And you might like to engage your big toe. So the base of the big toe could push into your scarf or belt so that your inner ankle begins to turn on a little more. So safe to straighten the leg here. If you have a knee injury, the knee isn't weight bearing. Any twinges, keeping a soft bend. So really simply easing into our hamstrings. We're going to be here for a couple more breaths. And then when you're ready, very softly and gently bending into your right knee, releasing this side. Taking a moment to allow the vibrations of that movement, that stretch, that shape to soften. And then eventually moving to the other side. So we're going to take our strap, our belt, our scarf around the ball of our left foot, beginning in the same way, if that feels possible for you. So maybe you begin to slide your hands down the prop, allowing the elbows to rest on the floor beside you. And then you might like to very gently and slowly reach your heel up towards the sky, finding a sensation of a stretch down the back of your left leg. You could also begin to push or engage the base of your big toe area there into the belt and scarf, so turning on the inner ankle. Encouraging your jaw to remain soft. Two more breaths here on this side. And then when you feel ready, slowly releasing your left leg. And you can pop your belt out of the way. Coming back to our constructive rest shape. We're going to make our way into our first yin yoga shape, sometimes known as banana asana, or I prefer the name crescent moon. So we're going to extend our legs away. Just going to move my cushions out of the way here. And we're going to shift our body into a crescent moon shape. So there's two ways we can do this. The upper body is often a little bit harder to maneuver. So you could use your elbows to push into the floor and shift your upper body to the right and then your legs to the right hand side. So you create the crescent moon shape. Another way, some people prefer to simply come back to the constructive rest shape, pushing into the feet and shifting the hips to the left hand side and beginning to find your way into a crescent moon shape that way. So making sure that you feel you've come into it the safest way that feels possible for you. And once you find this crescent moon shape, we can begin to explore the movement with the legs. So you could begin to take your left leg over your right, if you'd like to. See how that feels. If it feels a little bit too strong, you could begin to allow the left leg to lie next to the right. And then we have the possibility of working with our arms. The arms can begin to find an extension. So we're extending through the left-hand side of the body. And the option here, if you did have some pillows and cushions, to have your arms resting here on the bolsters. It depends on how tight your shoulders are. Maybe they can rest on the floor. One final option might be taking the right hand to the left wrist and gently pulling so that you find a bit more of a sensation than the left side of the body. So I'm going to begin to flip my egg timer. We're going to be here for at least 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes here. Knowing that you're really welcome to ease out of this shape sooner if your body is asking you to. Softening into your jaw as much as you can. And in the knowledge of the amount of time we're taking with each shape, it's a fine balance. We're looking for a sensation of stretch we feel comfortable holding for a length of time that also offers a freedom to our breath. You may like to soften your gaze or close your eyes. Beginning to notice where you can feel the sensations of the stretch in your body. And there are 3 steps as we come through and move into each shape. First, finding the shape. Then beginning to invite our body into stillness as well as our mind. And then finally, maybe you begin to connect with your breath. You might find that the sensation you initially felt with the shape in your body is beginning to soften, perhaps even melt a little away. Inviting a fluidity to your breath. As we work here with the heart and the lung meridians. So we're going to begin to slowly contemplate moving, not moving quite yet, but this idea of giving our nervous system a little warning, we're going to be moving. And then when you feel ready, releasing your arms if you haven't already, and beginning to find your way back to the center of your mat. And then when you're ready, we're going to begin to move to the other side. So it might feel very different on this side. We're moving our upper body and legs towards the left-hand side for this side. So maybe you begin to shuffle a little, moving any head support you're using that feels good, bringing the legs over to the left. You might like to begin to explore the right leg over the left here. See how that feels for you in your hips. If it feels too strong or the body's not very happy, allow the legs to lie side by side. It's almost a sense of less is more with you. And then maybe you're going to begin to integrate your arms into your crescent moon shape. So this is where the arms can begin to reach behind. Now I'm going to only use this bolster I have behind me to rest my arms on here. Another option could be cactus arms. You could take your arms into a cactus if that feels better for your shoulders. And also there's the option of taking hold of your right hand and gently pulling it across. So the heart is said to be the seat of the highest spirit energy. So this sense of beginning to open your heart through this crescent moon shape. You might like to gently check in with your jaw, encouraging it to remain soft. Perhaps you've brought your awareness to your breath and noticing where it's traveling to as you have found yourself and your body in a slightly different shape. We're going to be here for about 6 to 8 more breaths. Ensuring you're listening to your body, easing out sooner, if that's what it's asking for. in your own time, beginning to contemplate moving. The initial thought arising. Eventually releasing your arms. Finding your way back to the center of your mat. And you may like to draw your knees in for a hug here. Perhaps there's a little bit of rocking, circling, whatever feels intuitive to you in this moment. Then we're going to slowly roll over onto the front of our body to find open wing, which is a pectoral stretch. So beginning to roll over onto the front. And you may want a blanket underneath your hips here. So option here, just to make sure you've got a little bit of padding as we're going to be lying down again for a certain amount of time. Move any props you need to out of the way. And we're going to come into literally lying prone, so on our front, with our arms extended. So you'll see my arms are extended here into a sort of T shape. And I'm going to lie my head down and I'm looking towards my right hand to begin with. So it might be that a little bit of padding under your head is welcome. So the arms are about shoulder level. Body resting, hopefully feeling restful. And I'm going to begin to slide my right hand towards me. So you'll see that my elbow's bending, my hands come towards my right chest. My left arm isn't going to move, it's staying exactly as it is, palm face down. And then I'm gently rolling onto my left-hand side. And I'm going to take a little bend in my knees here so that I can find a bit of balance and stability. My left arm hasn't moved. You may find that you want to make it a little bit softer and just tilt the hips a little bit. We're looking for a sensation of a stretch somewhere around the left shoulder. There's never a right or wrong way to feel the sensation of the stretch. It's just making sure that there isn't any pain or strain. And then some of you may want to go a little bit deeper. So the next possibility is for the right leg to begin to roll up and out. You'll see the right knee has lifted up. My right foot has come down towards the floor behind me. And that's likely to make the sensation of the stretch a lot stronger. So I'm going to gently come into that again because I can see some of you are just checking and looking and watching. My right hand slides in towards my chest. I roll onto my left hand side, just a little, knees are bent. That's going to support a bit of balance. And then perhaps your right foot comes behind you. So we're going to take this for about 2 minutes. It's quite a strong stretch, particularly the shoulders. If you use a laptop, computer, or phone a lot, you might find that it is particularly tight. Finding the sensation that you know you can hold. So I often say it's somewhere between 40 and 70% of your range. Sometimes also known as our edge, coming to our edge. And this, I have to say, is one of my favorites. Open wing makes me think of a bird stretching its wings out. So beginning to invite softness to your shoulders. If you begin to feel any pins and needles, just easing out slowly and gently. Inviting a softness to your jaw and to your breath. So we tend to live a very young lifestyle these days, busy, doing things. So with Yin Yoga, it offers us an opportunity to nurture our well-being, particularly of our energy body. So working with the energy channels, the meridians. So we're going to begin to contemplate easing out very slowly, very gently. That first initial thought, and then very slowly taking your time to come back to the front of your body. So coming back to a prone shape. And we're going to come straight into the other side. So again, the arms are extended into our T shape, and our gaze is towards our left-hand side at the moment. So we're looking towards our left hand. Left hand slides in towards the body. And then we begin to roll onto our left-hand side. And there's a softness in our knees here. That's going to support the balance. This might be where you come to. This might be your edge. Perhaps you begin to find your left foot moving towards the floor behind you. So the left foot is grounded. I'm going to take that movement one more time for those who find it helpful and visual learners. Right arm extended, in line with the shoulder, palm facing down. Looking towards the right hand sliding in. And then maybe you begin to softly roll onto your right hand side. If you're going a little bit deeper, you would like a stronger stretch. The left foot is coming to the floor behind you. And most importantly, making sure your head is supported. Once you find the sensation of a stretch, you know you will be comfortable holding, pausing, finding stillness. So there's a physical stillness in our Yin Yoga practice. And then we begin to invite a stillness in our mind. Perhaps there's an invitation for your jaw to soften, and your breath to remain fluid. Knowing you're really welcome at any point to ease out of this shape. Listening, feeling into your body. I'm going to be here for about 4 to 6 more breaths.
beginning to contemplate movement. If you find that your body's quick to want to move, perhaps that's an indication of just having gone a little bit too deep. When you feel ready, beginning to ease out of the shape, safely, gently rolling over onto the front of your body. And you may like to come into a couple of cat cows if that feels good for your spine. So maybe there's a movement and rolling through your spine. There might also be a version of child, a version of balasana, finding a moment of stillness. And comfort here in balasana, if that works for you. Taking your time to rise up if you did come into child. And we're going to begin to set up for dragon. So dragon is similar to Anjali-asana or similar to a lunge, but obviously we're holding it for a little bit longer. We might want to come a little bit deeper. The arms are resting or restful. So you may like some padding for your knees. I'll move a few props out of the way. I've got 2 bolsters with you today, and actually I'm going to demonstrate using both, but actually one's enough. So the extra one will be an extra one or extra bonus for those of you that have a bolster. I'm going to just briefly show you the setup so that you know how it looks and maybe how it feels, and then we can decide what we're going to use as individuals. So we're going to come to what I would call tabletop. The right foot steps forwards, and then I've got 2 cork blocks here, or perhaps a bolster. So if I use the cork blocks here, I've got them on the inside here of my right foot, and I'm going to rest here. We're looking really to work with the inside line of the leg and the groin area in the hip. So you'll know with the cork blocks or any bricks blocks you've got, they've got different heights, so you can decide how far you want to go. It might be that you begin to heel toe your right foot out to right hand side, go a little bit deeper. The bolster can be the alternative because it offers a little bit of softness, or perhaps you've got some cushions and pillows. And for those of you that want to go a little bit deeper, you could begin to find your elbows on the bolster. I realise some of you may well be able to come all the way down to the floor in the mat. You'll know how far and how deep you want to go on this side. For those who have a second bolster, a nice option can be to use it as a bit of a stopper. So if I put my bolster there, I can almost rest the front of my left thigh on it, and it works as a bit of a doorstop. So just an option there as well. So deciding how high you want to be, how low you want to be, finding the sensation of a stretch in the inside. It's likely to be on the inside of the thigh, around the hip, the groin area, and then deciding and finding your stillness here. So once again, we're looking for a sensation of a stretch that we can hold for about 3 minutes. I've got my 3-minute timer. I'm going to place that down now. Adjusting as you need to and finding stillness. This is likely to be stronger, not always, but likely to be a little bit stronger than the first couple of shapes we've come to, depending on how deep you've taken this dragon shape.
Yin yoga is known for working with the connective tissue with the fascia. So as we hold the sensation of the stretch, the fascia works a bit like a sponge, and the wonderful Tom Myers describes it as a squeeze of a washing up sponge. And then as we ease out of a yin yoga shape, the fascia, the connective tissue, it's almost like it soaks up more hydration, more water. And just as acupuncture works with traditional Chinese medicine, helping to clear any blockages in the energy channels, the meridians, to allow the qi to flow with ease, so does yin yoga. So this possibility of working with yin yoga just as we do with acupuncture and acupressure. Maybe there's a moment where you just check in with your head and neck, check that it feels soft, it's relaxed. It might be a very gentle yes and no movement through the head and the neck. If in any way the shape begins to feel a little bit overwhelming, too strong, slowly easing out. And we're going to be here for about 4 to 6 more breaths. First contemplation of movement. So that initial thought, perhaps there's an acknowledgement of how you're going to ease out of this shape, how you feel you can safely move. You may like to begin to bring your upper body a little higher if that feels possible. It can feel nice to ease out and rock onto the right heel. So a sort of gentle rocking backwards and forwards. It's almost like a rebounding movement here. And we're going to eventually begin to change sides. So we're coming back to our tabletop shape. It's likely to feel very different on this side, as we all know. We're not symmetrical. So as you begin to bring your left foot forwards, finding the height that's going to work for you here. And I can demonstrate this on the other side, sometimes known as Stonehenge, a lovely way of just setting up a slightly higher possibility. So I've got 2 blocks, it could be bricks, whatever you've got, and then setting up a bolster on top, which is going to offer a little bit more height if that's needed. So taking these first few moments to explore the shape on this side. If you've got the second bolster, then maybe you're going to use that as a bit of a stopper, but also a support for the front of the right thigh as you drop down. Once again, I'm going to turn my timer now, about 3 minutes. Beginning to settle into stillness. If you are on your hands and your wrists are beginning to get a little bit tired or sore, you could make soft fists. So I sometimes come to soft fists with the thumbs pointing forward. It's just an option there if you'd like it. Maybe you drop down to elbows, or perhaps you've dropped all the way down to your mat and towards the earth. Maybe you notice how different it feels on this side. Perhaps bringing your awareness to where the sensation of the stretch feels different on this side. Perhaps it's stronger in a certain area. And the beautiful thing about working with fascia and connective tissue is it's almost like one big sheet of cling film. So as you begin to find a shape in yin yoga, like this, like dragon, we know that the sensation of this stretch in the area we're working with will translate and communicate to another part of our body. Perhaps you take a moment to invite your shoulders to soften, your head, your neck to be fully relaxed. Maybe coming back to the diaphragmatic breath, our functional breathing that we set up at the beginning of this session together. Your inhalation reaching the lowest lobes of your lungs with the rib cage expanding outwards. And perhaps watching your exhalation as it rises up and out and your rib cage softly retreats. Four to six more breaths if you are still here. In your own time, that momentary thought about moving, about how you're going to ease out of this shape. Eventually doing so slowly. So we're just, working with the autonomic nervous system at all times in yoga. Maybe there's a gentle movement in and out, that kind of rebound movement if it's helpful. Yin yoga works beautifully with the sympathetic nervous system, the active side of the nervous system. So feeling the sensation of a stretch, feeling that activity, then inviting the parasympathetic, inviting our rest and digest side to support us. You might like to come back to tabletop. You may like to take a couple of rounds of cat-cow, bring a little movement. Maybe there's a downward dog, depending on how much more yang you need. I quite like to take a catfish, so it might be that you bring your spine into the motion of a fish here. And we're going to eventually take one final shape. So it's a wide-legged seated position. In yin, it's known as straddle or as dragonfly. Helpful to have something under the hips that we sit on. I like to sit on the corner in this orientation, simply allowing the space in the lower back, the lumbar spine, but also to avoid that kind of slumpasana. And then we've also got the tilt of the pelvis forwards as well. So I'm just going to simply use a kind of regular yoga block, I'd like to think of it, after all these blocks we've been using. And I'm also going to have a couple of cushions. You might have a couple of blankets to put under the knees. So rather than it being active, like it might be in very different other forms of yoga, as we come into the wide leg, the feet can almost go floppy. Now, if you have a knee injury or you're hypermobile or super bending,
you might find it more beneficial to engage the feet. So take a moment maybe to explore that if you'd like to. It's my timer going over. And this is where I quite like to relax my legs. That works for me. And I'm going to use a cushion under each knee. So I'm going to make it a little bit more restful there. Now, if you have a bolster, I'm going to just show you a setup here. We're going to be coming forwards. We're going to be holding it for about 3 minutes once again. It's likely you're going to feel it in the inner thighs, the legs as well, working here with the kidney meridian, taking the gaze forwards. For those of you who have a bolster, you could set this up at an angle and rest your forehead on it. So it's almost in the Anya chakra, third eye chakra between the eyebrows. So if I put it just in front of me, I realize that's not very helpful so you can see me. My head can then rest there on my bolster. So an option there, if you'd like it, for some of you, you'll have the flexibility to be able to come down here. You could use a block, create a bit of support here, a bit of height, and come into a more restful shape as well. So that's an option there, remembering at some point to turn your head, because I won't be able to see all of you and which version or variation you've come to. So taking your time to find a safe setup for your legs here, and then on an exhalation, beginning to fold forwards. So if you're using the bolster, making sure it is supporting your belly in this way here. Perhaps you have it at the angle I demonstrated to begin with. So this idea of the bolster being at a bit of an angle and your forehead resting here. Arms can rest on the floor. So as you set up your straddle, your dragonfly, making sure you feel fully comfortable, you fully supported. I want to turn my egg timer over at this point. And you begin to relax into your jaw. Find a sense of stillness in the shape. Then a stillness in the body, knowing it's being supported with an active stretch. And then inviting that stillness to your mind. And as we come towards the end of our yin yoga session, is it possible to come a little deeper inside? That sense of leaving the outside world and coming inwards. Yin Yoga offers us an opportunity to nest within, to find our home within ourselves. If you have got the angled bolster set up with your head resting on it and your head is turned in one direction, taking your time to turn your head to the other side now. Maybe acknowledging the breath in the back of your body, feeling your ribcage expand at the back of your body. Beginning to slowly contemplate moving. This first thought arising. And then in your own time, beginning to perhaps walk your hands towards your hips as you come back up to a seated shape. Moving any props you can out of the way. And maybe you give your knees a helping hand, taking your hands underneath your knees, giving them a little bit of help as you release the shape. And you might like to lean back a little. And I call this windscreen wiper asana, just to ease out the legs here, if you'd like to. So when you're ready, finding a comfortable seated shape, maybe that's cross-legged and Sukhasana, maybe it's kneeling, whatever feels comfortable and right for you in this moment. And I've got a little quote from Rupi Kaur I thought I would share at the end of our practice today. So if you feel comfortable, maybe you take your hands across that heart central together in Anjali Mudra. And it's called Home Within Myself. It was when I stopped searching for home within others and lifted the foundations of home within myself, I found there were no roots more intimate than those between a mind and body that have decided to be whole. It was when I stopped searching for home within others and lifted the foundations of home within myself, I found there were no roots more intimate than those between a mind and body that have decided to be whole. So maybe there is a sense of your mind and your body becoming one in this moment. Maybe you found you're able to explore your inner dialogue, find your home within through our yin yoga session today. Thank you, Yoga Scotland, for having me. Thank you for joining me. You might like to take this moment as an offer of gratitude towards yourself for taking this time to practice yoga, but also to Yoga Scotland and the work they do. I'm going to draw my hands up to my forehead to invite kind thoughts, to my lips to invite kind words, and back to my heart center to invite kind actions. Om Shanti.